Welcome to the Scrapbook of Life with Theresa Khalil, a podcast on my journey to understand life, solve its mystery, and live it fully. And today I'm so excited because I'm meeting Dr. Randie Gottlieb, founding director and lead trainer for Unity Works, an educational nonprofit whose mission is to reduce prejudice and to promote understanding of the oneness of humanity, the value of diversity, and the need for unity. And this for me is actually my dream because I always had a dream to connect people and I always do things like that. So I'm very excited and curious to get to know about what you do, about your faith, of course. So Dr. Randie, are you ready?
I will do my best. Nice to be with you, Theresa.
Come, and with me, flip through the pages of the Scrapbook of Life. If you want to follow my journey to understand life, discover new beliefs and religions, and see how humans around the world are overcoming suffering and living their best life, subscribe to the channel. Listen on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can also sign up to my newsletter at th-khalil.com and get access to my creations monthly. Link in the description box. I just want to tell you at the beginning, before we go into your life timeline, and I see that you lived a very rich life. I was really curious to know more about the Bahá'í Faith because I come from Egypt, and Egypt actually has only two religions. Islam is the majority and then minority Christians. After I left Egypt, I discovered that there are some Baha'is in Egypt. They are Egyptians, but I never saw them. I never heard of them. And even when I was trying to meet a Baha'i on my journey to understand life, it wasn't easy. So, like, especially for the Arabs who, it wasn't safe for them to announce that they are Baha'i. So I'm really curious to know. And I made a video on this channel about the Baha'i Faith, just my little research about the Baha'i Faith, and I actually couldn't find anything that is scary or that worth all this, I don't know what's going on, especially in the Arabic world, about the Baha'i Faith. So let's start with your life timeline, and then we will go to your Baha'i story. So tell me about the birth, when you were born, where, if you know, how was it, if they told you, how was the delivery?
Before I was born, a really important part of my identity begins with my grandparents. And all four of them came to the United States as young teenagers, individually. They were refugees escaping persecution of the Jews in Eastern Europe. And they came with nothing but the clothes on their backs and the will to survive. They came to New York. They landed in New York City along with many other immigrants to Ellis Island. They faced a lot of persecution in this country as well. And my parents did too. My dad, who was in New York, he was in the 8th grade and he was walking on his way to school when he was surrounded by a group of Christian boys, and they all had rocks in their hands, and they said, if you take one more step towards our school, we'll kill you. And he turned around and never went back. So that's the highest schooling that he had, was halfway through 8th grade. My mom grew up mostly in New York, and then her family moved to Florida in the southern part of the United States. And she went to college, became a teacher, and was offered a teaching job in California all the way across the country. So in those days, there was no internet, no email. Everything was by what we call snail mail, very slow. So she got the paper that said, congratulations, you've got the job. Please come out 2 weeks in advance. We'll start before the semester starts. We'll set up your classroom, sign all the papers, get your books, everything ready. So she took a train, went all the way out to California, walked in the door and met the principal in his office And he gave her a form to fill out. And one of the questions is, what is your religion? Now, these days it's illegal to ask that, but at that time it was a normal part of the job application form. And Jews were taught to leave that space blank, because if they told people they were Jewish, there would be repercussions. Yeah. So she left it blank, but apparently everybody else knew that as well. And he saw that and he said, "You're a Jew. Get out of my office." And he ripped up the papers, and that was the end of her teaching career. So I wanted to share that to give a little bit of background. Shortly after that, I was born in the 1950s in a suburb of Los Angeles, California. And like many people, I had no choice as to whether or not I wanted to be born, or whether I wanted to be black or white, or tall or short, or male or female. They didn't even ask. And I suspect many of your viewers had a similar experience. So there I was. That was my birth.
Tell me about your childhood. You were raised a Jew in this case, right?
Kind of. I knew that we were Jewish, and we did celebrate a couple of the holy days, like we had Hanukkah and Yom Kippur. But our parents didn't take us to Hebrew school. We never studied the Jewish scriptures. We did have a menorah and lit candles once a year. But we didn't really know a lot about the history, a lot about the teachings, and they deliberately didn't want us to know that much or identify as Jews because they were afraid the same persecution would happen to us. So we were just kids for the most part. And even when I would ask my grandfather, who lived with us for some time, tell me about your childhood, your history. Where did you come from? What was it like when you were growing up? And he would always say, that door is closed. That door is closed. And what I've gathered over the years, he's gone from this world now, but I asked him every year, and I got the same answer. And my understanding is that all of his family was killed and lost in the Holocaust, and he didn't even want to talk about it, didn't want to think about it. So we kind of knew we were Jewish, but not really.
Actually, it's good that I like your grandfather approach, that not to go back to this bad events, because other families don't do this. Right.
No, it was too sad for him, and he didn't want to burden us with that sadness either. So partly as a result of their experience, I grew up in a very dysfunctional family. And as Jews, I mentioned my parents could not get regular jobs. And so we were poor. Food was scarce. Sometimes I stole food from the corner store. Our childhood was filled with constant fighting and abuse. I had 2 younger brothers and a younger sister. And I ran away from home many times, but I had no money and no place to go, so I kept coming back. And at school, I also felt like an outcast because I was 2 years younger than most of the other kids. For one, my mom had forged my birth certificate to make me look a year older so she could get me out of her hair, I think. She had enough raising 4 kids. And then I skipped a grade early on. So I was 10 when everyone else was 12. And so I was like a little baby. And I also had green hair. My hair was green because I had been a swimmer, competitive swimmer. And with blonde hair, the chlorine in the pool turned my hair green. And my hair was down to my waist. We couldn't afford haircuts. And so I looked really strange. And all my clothing was hand-me-downs from the neighbor girl. So my clothes were weird, my hair was weird, I was weird. And so I didn't really have a lot of friends in school, kind of an outcast. And so I turned to writing poetry and making art. And that was my escape. That way I could be at peace. That was my joy. And then later on in high school, I learned to play volleyball, which I happened to be good at. It was a lot of fun, and that's where I met my husband. I'll tell you about him later. And I also played volleyball on many competitive teams and at a very high level. So that's what occupied me for most of my middle school and high school years.
What did you study at university?
I started as an art for maybe 2 years, studying art, ceramics, wood design, jewelry making, metalwork. That was my joy. And my life goal was to build my own my own log cabin in the forest with no people around because I didn't like people. And I wanted to create art, have my little studio and my wood shop, make art, then bring it down to the town below, sell it, buy some food, return to the forest, repeat. That was my goal in life. And then halfway through university, something changed. And that's when Steve, the person who happened to be almost
You met in the volleyball.
We met at volleyball, and he fell in love. He said my legs were cute. That's what did it for him. That's it. But I liked him. He was really nice. He was smart. He was kind. I liked that he cared a lot about the world, the environment, pollution. He was against war. All the things that I also thought were important. He was actively working for positive change. And I did like him a lot, but then one day he said, "You're not just my girlfriend. I want you for my life." And he asked me to marry him. And I just said, no. I freaked out. I am never getting married. Married is a bad thing. I don't want children. I don't want to be married. My parents had a very bad marriage. They didn't believe in divorce, so they stayed together. And I just don't believe in that. I want none of it. And he goes, "But you're the one for me." And I don't care. But he kept asking and pressuring and bugging me. And finally I said, "Okay, that's enough. I'm leaving." And I took a leave of absence from school, from college or university, bought a Eurail pass, a train pass for Europe, got a backpack, and left. And I went to Europe for maybe 4 or 5 months and just traveled around. I wanted to see the world. I wanted to get away from Steve. And that just really opened my eyes. I went to 15 different countries, including North Africa, Morocco. I met with all kinds of people, gypsies, communists, drug smugglers. It really opened my eyes to the diversity in our world, because I had grown up in
What year was that?
That was 1970, probably 1970. So, did I meet you there? You probably hadn't been born yet.
I wasn't born. I was about to. I was about to be born.
About to be born.
Yeah.
So, it just really opened my eyes. And then that's also the first time I had heard of the Bahá'í Faith. And it was from a postcard that Steve had mailed to me. I was in Amsterdam. And I read the postcard. It didn't say "I love you" or anything like that. It just said, "I've become a Bahá'í." I said, "But what? What is that?" And I asked the people in the youth hostel, "What is Bahá'í?" And they said, "Oh, those are those weird, crazy people that sell incense, and they go chanting in the street. They shave their heads, and oh, poor Steve, what has happened to him? He used to be so smart and handsome." So I threw the postcard away and kept traveling around and met some people and had 2 more marriage proposals because I used to be cute. So, but that made me think, I really do love Steve. I should go back home and see what's happened to him and talk him out of it and give him another chance.
What was Steve before he was what?
He grew up in a very similar family, Jewish background. His parents were Jewish in name. They didn't really practice. They had a Christmas tree that celebrated Christmas every year. So, yeah. So, similar background.
So maybe that's why he had this idea of you are the one for me, because
maybe
it's in the Jewish.
I don't think we ever talked about faith, but I'm sure he knew that, but I don't know. Yeah, I just think he liked my legs. So I got back home, and he was still his normal self. I mean, he hadn't shaved his head. He wasn't selling incense in the street and chanting weird things. And so, well, I still love you. You know, you're still the same wonderful guy, but I don't want to get married. And he didn't really try to force the Baha'i Faith on me, but he would just kind of leave little pamphlets and books around and hope that I would pick them up. But I never did. I just didn't want to know. And finally, after months of this, I realized that I really did love Steve. And I did want to marry him. And we could have a different kind of marriage than my parents did. We could work at it and make it better. And I said, fine, I would like to marry you, but you can't be a Baha'i. I don't believe in any religion. I don't want to have a faith. And so you're going to have to make a choice. It's either me or God. Choose. And he said, I love you, but I am a Baha'i. And I was just so furious. How am I going to get him out of this crazy cult? And so I decided that it's going to be some work, but I was going to have to study and read and learn about not just the Baha'i Faith, so I could prove him wrong and show him all the errors and mistakes, but I was going to read the Christian Bible and the Jewish text, the Torah, and the Quran, and the Buddhist books, and Book of Mormon, and Hindu scriptures, and everything that I could find, so I could prove to him that religion was false. It was ridiculous. And so I did. And I'm a very methodical person, which you might have noticed, and very organized. And so I got a paper and made charts and went to the library, and I got old books and microfiche and translated things and wrote down dates and prophecies and countries and tried to figure this all out. And at the end of this study, which was about 9 months of constantly going to the library, and I came to the conclusion that the Baha'i Faith was true. And not only the Baha'i Faith, but all of these other religions were true. They were all true. Maybe their followers had misinterpreted things or changed things around or didn't follow the beliefs, but what I found from the original sources, they all fit together and made sense. And yet, so my head was convinced, but my heart, I couldn't give my heart. It just wasn't in me. And so and I forgot to mention one thing. This whole time that I was studying, I would also read at night after my parents had gone to bed so they wouldn't see me. And I had to put like a towel in the crack in the door, close the door, and use my flashlight under the bed covers. I would study these books. Because if they caught me, and occasionally my father came and found me reading, he would take my books and tear them up and tell me this was ridiculous. So I was studying late one night with my flashlight, reading a small Baha'i booklet called The Hidden Words. And I read this book, this chapter of little verses, little gems, and it said, O Son of Spirit, wert thou to speed throughout the immensity of space and traverse the expanse of heaven, yet thou wouldst find no rest save in submission to our command and humbleness before our face. And I read those words, and they went straight into my heart. And I thought, wow, this sounds like the voice of God. Human beings don't write like this. And that touched me in such a way as nothing had ever touched me before. But I don't believe in God. I don't want to be a Baha'i. I don't want to believe. And so I was having this fight between my head and my heart. And I decided to do one thing that I had never done before, and that was say a prayer. And you're going to laugh because this was kind of a rustic prayer, but I said, Oh God, I don't know if you exist, and I'll probably never know. But if you do, the least you can do is let my mother know. That was my prayer. 5 seconds later, my mother was in the room. She said, "Randie, wake up." And I'm like, "Mom, I am up. What are you doing up?" And she said, "I was fast asleep in my bed when the room filled with light, and I heard a voice, and it said, 'The Bahá'í Faith is true. Don't worry about your daughter. The Bahá'í Faith is true.'" And she said, "I'm not religious. I don't believe in God. I don't know anything about the Bahá'í Faith." And she pointed to her head, and this was a very symbolic gesture to me. She said, "I don't know any of its teachings. I don't know about its prophets or its founders. I don't know about its laws. I don't know anything about it." And then she pointed to her heart, and she said, "But I know that it's true." And then she said, "Well, good night." And she left. And I'm sitting there in my bed thinking, I had just been praying that my mother would see the light. And literally, the light came to her, and it came into her heart. And I said, there must be a God. How could he or she have known what I was thinking? I didn't even say it out loud. And instantly, there it was. But I still couldn't give my heart. I'm very stubborn. The next morning I got up.
That's like a miracle.
Yes, and I didn't believe in miracles, but what happened to me? The next morning I looked in the phone book, again, before internet, and so we had paper phone books, and I looked up Baha'i, and it said phone number, so I called it, and they said, "Oh yes, there's a meeting tonight for people who are interested and have questions. We'll have a speaker and refreshments. Why don't you come join us?" And so I did. I drove over there in my old car, and my mother was already there. I walked in the room, and there was my mother signing her Baha'i enrollment card. And I'm like, "What?" And she says, "Well, good night." And she left. That's the way my mother was. So there I was. Now I was at a Baha'i meeting, and there were about maybe 15 people in the room. They were sitting on couches around the edges of the room, and there was a speaker up in front. And the speaker would be explaining some of the Baha'i principles, which if you're interested I can share with you later. And he said,
I will ask.
Baha'is believe in the oneness of humanity. And I thought about that. And then there was a guy sitting right next to me, and he said, "Oh, that's ridiculous. That'll never happen. You'll never get blacks and whites to get along. You'll never get Jews and Christians and Muslims to agree on anything. No, it'll never happen." And every time the speaker would say a Baha'i principle or teaching, this guy sitting on my right would say, no, that's ridiculous, no. So I'm sitting here, I didn't say a word, I'm just listening and thinking, okay, God, I know you exist now. You gave me a miracle. I heard your voice. But I don't think that I can become a Baha'i, but maybe a test. If this guy becomes a Baha'i tonight, then you can have me. And I felt very secure at that point. And then the speaker went on and he gave another Baha'i principle. And Baha'is believe in the equality of women and men. And this guy goes, "That's it!" He was pounding on the table in front of me and goes, "I've had it with you Baha'is. Everything I say you've got an answer for. I can't fight you any longer. I want to join you." I went, "What?" And he became a Baha'i right then and there. And that's, okay, God, I surrender. And that's the night I became a Baha'i. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. That
so
was
you had you couldn't escape.
I couldn't escape. No. And the moment I put my name on that card and said, "Yes, I believe," my heart accepted, and I was filled with assurance and light. That doesn't mean that I'm a perfect Baha'i and I do everything right. That doesn't mean I still have questions, or sometimes I get mad at God and say, "Why do you let these terrible things happen in the world?" But in my heart, I know that it's true. And I'm content with that.
I will talk about the Baha'i because I have a lot of questions and I'm curious to know more about it. But
Sure.
tell me, let's go back to Steve. How was it when you became a Baha'i?
So, and he was in Honduras at the time, in Central America. And Baha'is, especially, this is true for Baha'i youth, are encouraged to, while they're still young, before they have jobs and families and other responsibilities, to do a year of service or to do some type of service, which we're encouraged to do throughout our lives anyway, but youth in particular. They have summer off of university, and so he would do that. In fact, we both did that for many summers before we had a family. We would go, and so he was spending the summer in Honduras and helping with Baha'i communities there and whatever they needed done. There, he was with a team of youth, and so he didn't find out that I was a Baha'i until he came back home, and he was thrilled. He was delighted. And we said, yes, we want to get married. We began planning our wedding, and a few months later, we were husband and wife.
At what age?
I was 19 and he was 20. We were very young.
Yeah, that's very young for getting married and also for changing the faith, you know?
Yes,
It's like
yes.
you did a lot of things so early and traveling the world.
That was foolish too. It was not very safe for a single blonde female, but I managed to make it home safely.
I know that your father wasn't happy with you. So you and your mother became Baha'i. Your brothers and the rest of the family, no?
No. My mother became a Baha'i, but she never told my father. As I mentioned, they did not have a very happy marriage and they didn't talk much. And so she never told him. But my father, he had followed me over or somehow found out where I was going the night of the Baha'i meeting. And it's called a fireside because the early Baha'is used to sit around fire out in the woods and teach the faith that way. So he came over to the fireside, saw me citing my card, and was just furious. And he said, oh, they must have drugged you or given you some kind of hypnotized you or something. And he took me out, put me in his car, which was an old Studebaker, which the top went down, convertible. And he said, breathe, take deep breaths. And he drove me up into the mountains near our house, and he said, breathe, get the poison out of you. Take a deep breath. And I said, Dad, it's not poison. It's joy. And he couldn't convince me. And at that time, I had moved away to go to school on the East Coast. Both Steve and I were studying. And, sorry, not at that time, but later on, after we had got married, and then we both got into schools on the East Coast in the Boston area, and we would come home every Christmas to see our families. And every year when I would come back, I would try to tell my dad about the Baha'i Faith, and he would tell me why that was ridiculous and it was stupid, and if you're going to be anything, you should be Jewish because that's the faith of your ancestors. And we would get into big fights. And that's my fault, because in the Baha'i teachings it says, if two people fight about religion, they're both wrong. And you shouldn't be fighting. You should be loving and understanding. But I didn't follow that teaching very well. So we would have a big argument every year. And then one year, I got a phone call. We were in the Boston area. I got a phone call from my family, and it said, come home now. Come home right away. Dad's in the hospital. He's dying. He's not going to make it. And so I got on the next plane, went to the hospital, and there he was, all hooked up with monitors and wires and tubes and surrounded by doctors and nurses and looking very pale. And he said, take me home. Take me home. I want to die in my own home. And so we did. We went home that night, and we took turns watching him, one at a time. And it was my turn. I was the last one to see him alive. And I had a guitar, and I decided to play him a song on the guitar. And he had given me that guitar years ago with the stipulation that I not play any Baha'i songs on it. I could play anything else, but not Baha'i songs. That was our agreement. And I honored that when I was in his presence. And I sang him a song which said, we all come from God, and unto him do we return, like a river flowing back to the ocean, or a ray of light returning to the sun. And technically that wasn't a Baha'i song, because those were the words of the forerunner of our faith, and someone had set them to beautiful music. And so I sang him that, and at the end of the song, he opened his eyes, and he looked at me, and he said, "Now, I'm ready to hear about the Baha'i Faith. Tell me." And then he died. And so, for me, that was my father and his heart opening at that last moment. And so, that's all I know.
Yeah, but tell me, like, as we're talking about this, so how is it in the Baha'i afterlife? Like, is it that your father will go to hell because he wasn't a Baha'i, or how is it in the Baha'i faith?
So, in the Baha'i teachings, the soul is eternal. So we don't die. We die to one world and are born into the next world. We are now, you and I, Theresa and Randie, we are here, we have bodies, we have names, we have identities. We are spiritual beings having a physical experience in this world. And in the Baha'i writings, Baha'i teachings, this world is as different from the next world as that of a child still in the womb of its mother. So the baby is inside the mother, and it can't see, it has eyes, but it can't see anything. They're closed. It has ears, it has arms and legs, but it can't walk. It has a mouth, but it doesn't eat anything. It's fed through a tube, right, the umbilical cord. And yet it is alive. It is that same soul. It's in a different world. And when the time is up in that world and the child is born into this world, the first thing it does is cry. It's out of its familiar environment. It's in this whole place. And yet that whole time it's been developing eyes, ears, arms, the mouth, that it needs in this world. It's developing those tools, those instruments, so it can communicate and survive and work and live in this world. This world is the womb world to the next world. So we are here, one of the reasons for this existence, in the Baha'i teachings it says, we are here to develop our spiritual qualities. That's one of the reasons, and there are others. Develop those qualities to use not only here, but that is what we will bring to the next world. We don't bring our physical bodies. Our physical bodies, when we die, go back into the earth, and they become trees and flowers and plants, and the atoms, the physical atoms, and then our spirit continues into the spiritual world. And so we do believe there is life after death.
So the spiritual world, is the spiritual world just something like life, but in another form? But there is no judgment, no like other beliefs, heaven and hell.
Yes. It's like many religions, it says that we are responsible for our actions in this world. So if we were a murderer, say, or a terrible person, that's on our soul. And in the next world, we're not going to be congratulated, oh, you did a great job murdering all those people. But there will be punishments or repercussions. We don't believe in a physical place like a hell with fire where you have your physical body burning up, or a heaven with angels and harps, singing and ice cream. I don't know what you get in the next world. But like in the Christian teachings, it says, my Father's house has many mansions. And so we might be at, level 1 and then striving to get to level 2 and then maybe level 3. But it's not where you burn in hell forever. We do not believe that, no. That God is merciful.
Okay, and
yeah.
And the followers of the Bahá'í, the good ones, are in the highest, and the other religions are in the lowest, or it's different?
Absolutely not. No, there's not like a hierarchy of religions, because for Baha'is, no. Or in the Bahá'í Faith, there's a concept called progressive revelation. Progressive means step-by-step levels. And in the Bahá'í teachings, all of the teachers of God, this is one of the basic Bahá'í teaching, is that there's only one God. There's one creator for all of us. And we might call that God by different names. Allah, Dios, the Lord, creator. But there's only one. And there's also only one race, and that's the human race. And we could talk about that later too. That's why I chose the work that I do. One God, one human race, and there's only one religion, one unfolding religion, and that's the religion of God. And it's like a book with different chapters. It's the same book. Or you might have different mirrors. One's called Jesus, one's called Muhammad, one's called Buddha, and they're all reflecting the same sunlight in a different mirror.
It's like this metaphor also of the elephant.
Yes, exactly. The blind man and the elephant.
It could be that each religion is just a perspective of the same
Exactly.
God.
Exactly. All of these great teachers, and Baha'is call them manifestations of God, because they're manifesting or reflecting that same light. They all speak with the same voice. They bring the same eternal spiritual truths, but like the elephant, where one's feeling the tail, they say, oh, the elephant feels like this, and the other one's feeling the ears and the trunk. Each one brings the teachings, the social teachings, appropriate for that age and that society where they appear. But each one of those is the way of God for that time. And so Muhammad said it. He said, we believe in God and what has been revealed to us and what was given to Moses and Jesus and the prophets from their Lord. And Jesus said it. He said, had you believed in Moses, you would have believed in me, for he wrote of me. And he said, I have other sheep that are not of this fold. And the Buddha, he said, I am not the first Buddha who came upon the earth, nor shall I be the last. And in many native tribes, indigenous, like Indian tribes, there's oral traditions of, yes, we've accepted those of the past, and at the time of the future, when the earth is in great turmoil, God will send another. The Creator, they say, will send another one to guide humanity into the next stage. So all of them...
So there is more?
Yes, there's more. But right now, Baha'is believe, and this is why I'm a Baha'i, Baha'is believe that Baha'u'llah, who is the founder of the Baha'i Faith, Baha'u'llah is the messenger for today. And Baha'u'llah said, yes, all of these messengers who have come to you, Moses, Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, Muhammad, are all from God. And I'm bringing the next chapter from the same book with the teachings that we need for today. And the primary teaching is for humanity to recognize, finally, that we are one human race. We are one family under one God. And that's the message we need to hear for today. So now I forgot, Theresa, what the question is that you asked me. But
so in the afterlife,
oh,
all
yes,
the
thank
religions...
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry. Yes, so you asked if there was a hierarchy, if Baha'is are on the top, and then Muslims, and then Christians and Jews. No. I'm responsible to God for myself, whatever name I call myself. There are many people who might call themselves Christians, for example, who came to this country with a Bible in one hand and a gun in the other and killed all the native people who were here. They might call themselves Christians, but is that the Christian teaching? So it's not a hierarchy.
So it's not about the belief, it's about your actions.
Yes, your actions, what you do. And all of those teachers, they're different lamps for the same light. So we're following the light. Maybe I'm following the light for this day, and someone else is following the light for when Buddha was here. And it's the individual when they go to the next world. Yeah, they're not separate rooms for Christians and Jews and Muslims. is my understanding. So.
But I'm not sure then, don't you see that the other is wrong, or they should also become a Baha'i?
So Baha'is do not go around forcing people to believe in a certain way or condemning them if they don't believe exactly what I believe. That there could be Baha'is who do terrible things and call themselves Baha'is. We are encouraged to teach this faith, share the message for whoever is interested, but we're not allowed to force them. It says no proselytizing, which means you can't go and twist someone's arm and say, you're going to go to hell if you don't believe exactly what I believe. That's actually against Baha'i teachings. So if someone's interested and they want to, I'm more than happy, and any Baha'i would be more than happy to share, but then it's up to that person to decide their own belief and to try to put that belief into practice. So
you don't have this... like, for example, Christianity, to go and preach and try to get more followers, or like in Islam, for example, da'wah, I don't remember that I saw any Baha'is. Do you distribute flyers and things like that? And
so there's no clergy, first of all. There's no clergy in the Baha'i Faith. There's no priests, no rabbis, no mullahs. Each Baha'i does their own teaching, or each Baha'i community might do something. For example, my husband and I have held many meetings or firesides which are open to anyone. And so we might distribute a flyer for that meeting, like, there's a meeting, next Friday to learn about the Baha'i teachings. If you're interested, come at 8:00. Here's the address. Mm-hmm. So but we don't go around knocking on people's doors telling them that they're going to hell if they don't believe what we do. Mm. But yes, we absolutely teach where there's a willing ear, a listening ear. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we do publicize our activities, so otherwise how would people know? And
this is how you also do service. So
service is a very important part of being a Baha'i. In fact, it's in the teachings it says that is one of the reasons that we are in this life. Our purpose here is to know and to love God as best as we can, to carry forward an ever-advancing civilization. That means our whether it's our family, our immediate community, our country, our world, to help that advance, and then to be of service to our fellow human beings. It's a primary reason that we're here in this world, to be of service.
Can you give me an examples, like what services do you do?
So,
or you did? What services
did you do? Still trying. I am old, but still working on it.
You look young.
Thank you. It must be the filter. I have tried to be of service in many ways, and sometimes even just by surprise. I've been elected to a number of Baha'i bodies. For example, I mentioned that there's no priesthood, no clergy in the Baha'i Faith. So how do we organize our communities? And we have elected bodies. And at the local level, it's called the Local Spiritual Assembly. It's a council of 9 people, and they're elected every year, men and women. And it's a secret vote, and there's no campaigning, no candidates. You don't run for office. Just people come together for the annual meeting, They write down, in a spirit of prayer, they write down 9 names who they think would be good people to serve for that next year on the council. And then someone counts the votes and they read them out, and surprise, you might be elected. And maybe you won't be able to because you're sick, or you're taking care of an aging parent full-time, or maybe you have a full-time job and 3 kids and you just can't. So you can say no. But I've been elected to many of those local institutions, local spiritual assemblies, and have been of service that way. Have also served on the National Spiritual Assembly when we lived in Puerto Rico for many years. And I've served on an international body as well. Also served.
What kind of service? What kind
Well,
of service?
on the spiritual assemblies, it's basically helping to organize community activities, organize meetings. Someone needs to be the secretary and take notes. Someone needs to chair the meeting. Someone needs to be the treasurer. Someone needs to help if someone's sick, organize a hospitality committee, just children's classes, youth groups, service projects in the local community, just organizing a community, perhaps the same way a church might have activities. One of the things that I considered my Baha'i service was working in Panama, and I think it's been probably 7 or 8 times that my husband and I, or just myself, have been down to Panama for a couple of months at a time during summer when we were university students and we had summers off of school and before we had children. I was in Panama to assist the Baha'i community there with its programs and its projects. And one of those was Microsoft has an office in Panama, and they had a program where they offered funding, grant funds, for starting computer labs in isolated rural areas, and especially with native peoples around the world. And we consulted with their group in Panama, and I had been working for a number of years with the Nobe Bugle Indians in the western Panama, in the province of Chiriquí. And these Nobes were very poor. They had been driven out of their lands. They used to be all throughout the rest of Panama. And they had been driven up into the mountains and killed. Most were killed by the invading Europeans. Columbus went there, for example. And the few who escaped to the highlands, where there's no roads, no electricity, no running water, very limited housing and dwellings, not enough food to eat, and I thought, I was working with an organization at that time, the Mona Foundation, who was helping groups around the world with education. And the thought was, maybe these people could use a computer lab. It would help them be in touch with the rest of the world, and they could learn about resources and education. They could even do education through the computers, even if there were no public schools. And so we consulted with the tribal council of the Nobes in Soloy, the town where their headquarters was. And they wanted to consult with their people and ask, is this a good thing or a bad thing? It could lead to problems. It could bring in the outside world and all the bad things that come with it. Or we can, make some rules around it and have it be of service to our people. And they decided, yes, we want this. And so part of my work there was to find a place for that computer lab, and it was in a secondary school. And then find the company that was willing to install the solar panels for the internet connection, and another company to provide the batteries for storing the electricity, and then set up the labs with the computers provided by Microsoft. So that wasn't a paid job, that was service, working with the Nobe people. That's one example.
Yeah. So you do like international work.
Whatever needs doing. Right now, after having kids, that became a little bit harder. So I've been mostly working on the home front.
But other Baha'is are doing this.
All over the world. Yes. All over the world.
And I was looking into the Baha'i teachings, and I liked how there is equality between men and women.
That's one of the things I like too.
And but one of the things that, because I was researching, when it comes to homosexuality, you can't be a Baha'i and homosexual, but you could be a friend of the Baha'i.
Actually,
So there is something called friend of the religion. There is something, or friend of the faith, something like that.
That
Can you
homosexuality.
explain this to me?
Yes, as best as I can. So you can be a Baha'i and be homosexual, but you can't act on it. So let me explain.
Okay.
So around the world today, homosexuality is often addressed as a yes or a no. And if you hold a different view from me, then you're wrong, you're immoral, and you're going to hell, right? So that's what people say.
The new perspective in many of the religions now is that, yeah, you can be homosexual, but you can't act on it.
Right.
So this is the new view of the homosexual.
Right, and the Pope just came out with something about blessing homosexual unions, but not formal blessing. So yeah, even the Catholic Church has come out with that. Baha'is take no part in that conflict, and we believe it's not appropriate to force other people on matters of belief. So if I believe something, I can't force that on you. The Baha'i Faith does state that the family is the foundation of society, the foundation of civilization. And it also states that marriage is between a man and a woman, and it states that sexual relations are only permitted in marriage. It does say that. And I don't claim to understand the reason for that. I have many friends who are gay or lesbian, and so I have to say I don't understand, because you don't choose to be that way, especially with all the persecution in the world. Why would someone choose to do that, know that they might be killed? But the Baha'i teachings is, the Baha'i Faith is open to all, with the expectation that those who accept the faith will make a sincere effort to abide by its teachings. And at the same time, we're encouraged to be respectful of those with a different view, and not to judge people, and not to impose our standards on them. So basically, the short answer is Baha'is take no position on the sexual practices of people who aren't Baha'is, or any type of relationship between people of the same sex. That prejudice of any kind is entirely against the spirit of the Baha'i Faith. Rather, our job is to strive to end discrimination, end prejudice, and protect the human rights of all. If someone chooses to be a Baha'i, they should strive to live up to the Baha'i teachings. And that is the Baha'i teachings. I'm not saying I understand it, but that is one of the teachings that was a challenge for me to understand. But I recognize that is the law.
Yeah, but things maybe also change, because like when I look at, because I always look at the big picture, so
yes.
I see that as more discoveries come up, many religions change how they see things. So we don't know what will happen. And also, I think in the Baha'i Faith, you said there is like progressing, and
we don't know what the future holds.
yeah. Okay. So there is this, as I said, I come from Egypt, and there is this fear of the Baha'i belief. And when I looked into it, I found it was peaceful religion. Like I didn't see anything scary. But what I'm suspecting that could be the reason is that I feel that in the Baha'i Faith that you belong more to humanity, more than to a country. Is this true?
So there's a beautiful Baha'i quote which I love, and I saw something very similar on your website, Theresa, because I looked at when you first contacted me and said, who is that? So the Baha'i teachings say, the earth is but one country and mankind its citizens. And so, yes, that is true. We are loyal to our families and to our own country, but there's a wider loyalty, and that's to all of humankind. Now, that unfortunately is not the reason why the Baha'i Faith is not appreciated, I'll use that word, in Egypt, and it's not just Egypt, it's every Muslim country on the planet, whether it's Iraq, Iran, Egypt, Morocco, Syria. The Baha'i Faith is illegal in most of those countries. And part of the reason, in my understanding, the Baha'i Faith was born in Iran, Persia at the time, in 1863, and its forerunner, the forerunner to the Baha'i Faith, just like Jesus had a forerunner who announced the coming of Jesus, that was John the Baptist. The Baha'i Faith has a forerunner, and his name or his title was the Bab, which means the gate in Arabic. And when the Bab came in 1844, and he said, the great prophet will come after me. When he announced his mission, many, many people became his followers. Thousands of people. And this upset the Muslim clergy. People were leaving the Muslim faith and becoming followers of the Bab and awaiting that great manifestation. And in fact, 20,000 of the Bab's early followers were put to death by the clergy. Mm-hmm. So when Baha'u'llah, the founder of the Baha'i Faith, announced that he was that one that the Bab had foretold, he was the promised one, and people started following him, immediately he was exiled to Iraq and then Turkey, and he was put in prison, and he was bastinadoed and beaten on the feet and lost everything, and his family was put in prison with him and his children. And every place they sent him, his jailers would become Baha'is and start to follow him. And the clergy was not too thrilled about that. And so in all of those countries, the Baha'i Faith is against the law.
And then he settled in Palestine. He
was exiled, first to Iraq, from Iran to Iraq, to Turkey, and finally to, at that time, it was called Palestine. He was exiled as a prisoner. We have photos of the prison with the bars in Haifa, Israel, which was a Turkish penal colony at the time. That's where they sent their prisoners in exile. And that's where he spent the remainder of his days. Yes, and that's why our Baha'i World Center is there now in Haifa, Israel.
The language that the teachings are in is Persian or Arabic?
They're in Arabic and Persian. And then many have been translated into English and hundreds of other languages around the globe. But the originals are in Arabic and Persian. At least that's my understanding.
So I can actually read.
You can, but I can't. Yes, you can.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Now tell me, like you were, before you become a Baha'i, I mean you had 19 years, let's say, before becoming a Baha'i. Is there a difference? Like, did you feel a difference between being a Baha'i and not having a practicing belief? Did it have a positive effect on your life?
Absolutely. I have never thought about that question before, but yes, I went from being an outcast as a little Jewish girl. I went from being to being part of a worldwide global human family where I truly feel like I'm a member of that family, and I can go anywhere on the planet and visit the Baha'i community there, and that's my community, and feel at home, even if I don't understand the language or the customs. I went from being a white little girl growing up in an all-white community with an essentially all-white school to, again, a global family, a community with brothers and sisters of every color, every culture, every religious background. That's my family. I consider them my family. And I didn't have that before. And to see us all working towards the same goals, talking about the same hopes, the same dreams, and working together towards those same goals, it makes me feel like I'm part of something that's important to this world, that will have an impact. Even though my little piece of it is this big, it's one small piece of the puzzle, I feel like we're all helping to put those pieces together, and we can see that this puzzle is unfolding before our eyes. So yes, it completely changed my view.
So actually, it gave a meaning to your life?
It has given meaning to my life. Before, I think I told you, I just wanted to be a hermit. I didn't like people. I wanted to live in the forest, make art, sell it, get food, and go back to the forest. That was my goal in life. And now my goal is to help spread the recognition that we are one human family. And that's become my life's work. And that's what gives me meaning. Even though I should have retired 10 years ago, it keeps me going.
Yeah, I will talk about the foundation that you have because I'm interested in this concept. But in general, not for you, but what do you think is the meaning of life? Like, we are here to develop our spirit, to move to another world. But what is the point of all this?
That is probably a question that you'll have to ask God. Because
That's a great answer.
My understanding, why did God create us? Why did he create this world? And Baha'is also believe that every star has its planets, and every planet has its creatures. We are not unique in the universe. There is life everywhere. Maybe this is all we can see right now, or with our telescopes and Hubbles and so forth. But there is much more to this. We are just one tiny drop. Why God did that, and why he gave us free will so that we can have wars and do nasty things to each other, I can't answer that. But what the Baha'i teachings say is that we have been created to know and to worship God, to carry forward an ever-advancing civilization in this world, and to serve our fellow humans here. As to why that is, you'll have to ask God. And let me know when you find out.
Yeah, that's why I'm on this journey. I'm trying to get all the answers and see which one makes more sense. But this one is very great.
No, what you are doing is one of the teachings of the Bahá'í Faith. It says that every person's job here is to independently investigate truth. Independently investigate truth.
I also believe this.
Yes.
Yeah.
It said, don't just become something because your parents were that religion, or your society tells you to, or you happen to be born in a Muslim country or a Jewish country. You must investigate for yourself, whether that's reading and studying or praying or traveling. Every human being has that obligation to investigate truth. And so you are really exemplifying that, and you are sharing that on your website with all of the incredible, beautiful videos that you are making and helping other people on that journey as well. It's important. That's an important piece of the puzzle too. Yeah.
Yeah, I do this by nature, That's who I am. I'm just a seeker and a questioner. So
yes, excellent.
But I also know that not all people are like that.
No.
Like this. So this will take us to like the free will, and we will go into another discussion. But tell me about the foundation that you have, and that it's exactly what I'm dreaming of doing.
Oh, interesting.
Bringing people together, diversity, celebrating diversity. So you created this, and how did you get the idea? What did you do?
Well, I'll tell you, but Theresa, maybe you'll be a part of it in the future. Maybe you'll be the Croatian arm.
Maybe.
So Unity Works, and the title Unity Works means that, let's try it, it works. That's its name. We're a nonprofit organization, and as you said, we're committed to a belief in the oneness of humanity, the value of diversity, and the need for unity. So our mission specifically is to reduce prejudice and to promote cross-racial and cross-cultural understanding and equity or justice and inclusion. And our particular focus is on K through 12 schools. I used to work with corporations, companies, businesses doing this, but what I found was a lot of companies want to do diversity training because they want to sell more products to more diverse people, or they want to avoid a lawsuit because they were discriminating against women or against black people, and how do we avoid a lawsuit? And being a teacher myself, I started out as a teacher, teaching.
Me too.
You
I was
too.
Teaching.
What did you teach?
I was teaching.
What were
I was
you teaching?
Computer graphics and multimedia.
Oh, wow. Okay.
For something we have in Egypt called the American education.
Okay. All right. To
it's called
college
the
students?
SAT. I think you have it in America, the SAT exam. So they study until they make... Yeah. So I also like to teach. I like to teach, especially little children. I'm not so much into the teenagers, but
they're a little more difficult in some ways. But so teaching is my joy. I love teaching. That's my calling. And so Unity Works, our focus on, I wanted to focus on K through 12 schools, partly because with young children, before they've gotten all those stereotypes and prejudices and hatreds in their heart, they're still young enough and flexible enough to see a bigger picture. And a teacher, we work mostly with the teachers and the school principals, the directors, because one teacher can reach 1,000 students, thousands of students in the course of their career. So there's this huge multiplier effect. It's not just teaching one person. And so we settled on K through 12 schools, and we offer 3 things: training, we offer diversity resources that they can use with their students, activities, curriculum guides, PowerPoints, and then ongoing support. Now, our whole school program shut down with the pandemic, the COVID pandemic, because all the schools were closed. And so we will be starting that up again, hopefully, in the near future. But right now, we do workshops, and we've pretty much gone all online, except I recently did a couple of in-person ones on the East Coast, and we'll be going back in person again with the summer, is my hope.
I can go online and I can check this?
Yes. You can look at videos, but I don't have any online courses coming up right now. But you're welcome to join in with an online course when we have our next one. So the reason I founded this was our entire world is becoming more fractured and polarized by the minute. There's a rising tide of prejudice and hate. Every day you open the news and it's like, really? Another one? And while we're not responsible for the past, together we can help shape the future. It's like we inherited a house that's old and moldy, and it has spider webs and dust and broken furniture, but we live in it now. And so it's our responsibility to fix it. And so, especially starting with our schools, we can create safe and inclusive classrooms where diversity is welcomed, where every student knows that they belong. So that's my goal, is our classrooms can become models of hope for the future.
Can you just give me an example of what's like one step, like what? How can you bring those people together?
Yeah, one of my favorite ones was an elementary school in Washington State, and they were having major problems with little children coming to school, calling children of other colors very bad names, and I won't repeat them here, but especially white children calling black children terrible names, or Hispanic children.
Until now? In 2023?
Well, this one was...
2024?
Yes, it's still happening, unfortunately, I'm sad to say. In fact, in some places it's gotten worse. But this particular school, their Unity Works team decided that they were going to work on this somehow, but they didn't know exactly what they were going to do, and they were just thinking about different ideas. And then on the first day of school, the principal told me she was standing on the schoolyard watching the kids playing during recess, and there were two little girls standing in front of her. And she heard one girl say to the other, "My father and mother won't let me play with you anymore because you are the color of poop." Now, I don't know if you know what poop is.
Yeah.
Okay. So the principal said she was devastated by that remark, and especially when she saw the child's face. And she went back to her Unity Works team, and they said, "We have to do something about skin color. We have to talk to our students about skin color." And they put together a whole series of activities, and I have a curriculum guide for elementary school. It's called Teaching Unity. It's a series of lesson plans and activities that teachers can use. So they went through that for the first month and did all the different activities, and the final project was skin color portraits. So each person would make a painting of their face and then paint it with the correct skin color that matched their skin, and draw in the nose and the eyes and the hair or glasses or whatever. So first the Unity Works team did that. There were 5 of them. They drew their self-portraits with the correct skin colors. One was black, one was pinkish, one was tan. They put those up on the wall outside the office. And then that was the example. And then they had I think there were 50 teachers make their skin color portraits. And then they had all the teachers work with all of the students, over 700 students in the school. And every student made their own skin color portraits, and those were posted up in the hallways all around the school. What happened as a result of those lessons, and in particular that project, the principal said all of the name-calling and racial bullying and hatred vanished overnight. The day those skin color pictures went up on the wall, no more racial bullying at school. And she said, "You know why?" So every single skin color was good. Every face was up on the wall. And the students even brought their parents into the school and said, "Look, there's me." And they were proud of who they were. And they were among their friends' faces of all the different colors. It overnight changed the culture of the school. And Theresa, all it cost was $100, which is not a lot of money here, for multicultural paint. Easy to do, but complete change. That's one of my favorites.
But it needs a lot of thinking. So you give the ideas.
Well, and they come up with their own ideas as well. That one happened to be in the book, but maybe I saw that idea somewhere else. And then at the end of the school year, we would bring all of the school teams together and ask them to share what they did. So all of those ideas got spread around to everybody, and they learned from each other. And then the next year, they could use those ideas or make up their own. And sometimes schools would work together and do a collaborative project as well. So, yeah, it's just like throwing seeds into the ground, and then things spring up, and you see the beautiful flowers, and you say, "I want to do that too." So it's actually fun.
I like
it's
this.
not hard.
Yeah, it can be applied to many other diversity problems,
It can, absolutely.
Okay, that's so beautiful. So now you got married to Steve, and you had 2 children?
We had 2 boys who are now grown up, and they have their own families, and yeah.
And how did you raise your children? Did you let them choose what they want to believe, or you told them about the Bahá'í Faith and raised them as Baha'is?
So, kind of both. We don't choose our children's religion. In fact, no one can choose the faith for another person. That's what we believe. We expose them to many different religions, different people, people with no religion, And we did absolutely bring them to Baha'i activities, Baha'i service projects. They went to Baha'i conferences and summer schools and different activities, absolutely, Baha'i children's classes. And when a child turns 15, they are allowed to choose, that's the soonest, they are allowed to choose for themselves if they want to be Baha'is. And both of our children did make that choice when they were 15. So, but that's up to them, it's not up to their parents. So, yes.
Yeah, that's good. But let's say they didn't choose the Baha'i. How would be the reaction?
From us as parents?
Like I'm sure you were expecting that they will become Baha'is. But what if they did like you did to your father, and they chose something else?
We would still love them and support them no matter what whatever they chose. So right now, one of our, as I said, they both chose to be Baha'is when they were 15. One of our children changed his mind later and decided not to be Baha'i, although he still believes in the Baha'i teachings, still believes in God. He went through some very difficult times in life and kind of withdrew from the community for a while. So, and we love him just the same, and nothing has changed. He's our child, he's a soul, and he has produced beautiful grandchildren, has a beautiful wife, and that's part of our beautiful family. So no change. A person's faith is between them and God, not between them and us. Yeah, and I say that with all sincerity. Yes.
Okay, so now you are a grandmother.
Yes, I am. I wish I could spend more time with my children and grandchildren, and I hope to be doing that. I'm hoping to retire. I have plans for Unity Works. I can share those if you like as well. But I love being a grandmother and seeing a pure, innocent baby go through its diapers stage and its nursing stage, and then its screaming and crying stage. Then all of the activities. Right now we have 5 grandchildren, and one is 2 years old, one is 3, we have a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 17-year-old. And they're all at different stages, doing different activities, and it's just such a joy to see them grow up, to be with them, to bounce them on our shoulders, to sing to them and read them stories, to ask and answer questions. It's a joy to see another pure and innocent soul go through these stages and develop, and hopefully into one that will be of service to humanity.
Mm-hmm.
I highly
But you
recommend
don't worry about them.
Of course I worry about them.
In such world.
I worry about them all the time. This world is such a mess, and there's no guarantees, and I wake up every day, I pray for my children and grandchildren, my family. I pray for those who have passed on to the spirit world, and I pray that humanity will eventually wake up, stop killing each other, and recognize that we are brothers and sisters, and we can make this world better for all.
I thought that I feel now that humanity is more developed than before. For example, the borders settled, so there is no someone invading someone else, and it happens very rarely.
Well,
but for some reason there is still wars, and still I feel there is some progress, but sometimes I also see that it's the same thing. Nothing changed.
You're right in the sense that, well, you're right, both things are true. We do have borders, but we also have people invading borders. We have, I'm truly saddened by all the conflicts that are going on in the world today. And Baha'is aren't political. I'm not going to choose sides and say, well, these people are evil and these people are good. We're all human. And we need to abandon all forms of prejudice, whether it's race, religion, class, gender, color, culture, whatever. Aggressors need to be confronted. We need some universally accepted human standards where we can treat each other as human beings. If we have disagreements, we need ways to work out those agreements or disagreements without murdering innocent people.
I thought so. I also thought so, that now we reach this stage when this is supposed to be happening. But then I see a setback.
Yeah.
So I'm like, how is this even possible? And for example, I feel that the 70s, there was a lot of progressing. And then in the 80s, things went back again. And
Well, I think you're right. It's like we took a step forward and then a step back. And this is before your time, before mine too, World War I, where the nations of the world were fighting, all of them were fighting and killing each other. And out of that conflict, there grew the League of Nations, which was all the nations saying, yes, we're going to work together and prevent war. Well, that baby was stillborn. It didn't work. It wasn't effective. And then we continued on that path for a while, and then we had World War II, also before your time, and mine. And we had better technology and better weapons and atom bombs and much more destruction and murder and death. And then out of World War II was born the United Nations. And that set up some committees and committees for protection of children and committees for refugees and committees for different things. And that was having somewhat of a positive effect. But again, back into the chaos. And maybe, I don't know, I honestly don't know, but it sure feels like we're headed towards the third stage and some type of global conflict. It feels that way to me. And in my travels, I've come across different indigenous groups, the Navajo people here, or the Nobe Bugles in Panama, or the Mayas and Aztecs in Mexico and Guatemala and other places. And of all of these indigenous groups seem to have a similar prophecy. And that is, they use the analogy of God, they say the Creator, put forth his hand, grabbed the earth, and shook it the first time. And people, wake up! Don't you realize what you're doing? That's not why I created you. And then World War II, and it happened again. And God put forth the other hand the second time and shook the earth. Wake up, people! And then in these native prophecies, the third time, God put both hands out and shook the world. And
oh my goodness.
It feels like that's where we're headed, but the prophecy ends with people woke up after that and decided and recognized that we are one. We are different, and our differences, our diversity is beautiful and necessary. It gives us options and choices and strength and power in our diversity. But we are one organism, one human family. Just like we have a heart and lungs and eyes and ears and fingers and hands, they're all different, but we need them all to function as one whole. And after that third shaking, perhaps we will wake up. I don't want to be there when it happens, but and I pray for my children and my grandchildren. But
that's why I didn't bring my children to life.
Yes, I understand that, and that's why I did not want to have children at first. Why bring them into this world? It's filled with so much pain and suffering. It's also filled with beauty and joy. And why would I deprive them of that? And so it's kind of a battle that I've had, and I worry about them. But then also knowing that we are spiritual beings and our soul continues forever. And this is just a temporary layover. So.
Okay, thank you, Randie, so much. I
Thank you,
really
Theresa.
enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you.
And, I see that you are doing, your life is actually rich and beautiful, and I like how the principles of the Bahá'í Faith, and this idea of bringing humanity together. It's just like I feel that I relate, you know. It's like you said, I have this already in my website, so.
You do. And I will send some special thoughts and prayers for your work to continue, because you are doing something that is truly important and much needed in this world, and I thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.
On my journey to understand life, I would like to meet you and document your life story in the scrapbook of life. Send a summary of the story to the email in the description box or the show notes. Just few requirements. You need to be over 40 years old, you changed your belief, and you have answers to the mysterious questions of life. This journey of mine started when I met Wang Zongyang in a documentary film, and you can watch it below. My thirst to answers is pushing me to discover and meet more people who are living this life experience to the best possible way, through their own belief. Who is next? And which belief? I'm open to all possibilities.